got your boys here, Josh and Elliot. So,
Represent.
some may know us as Rhythms and Hinds, but
That's
from a
right.
former life.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So, how's Scotland turning out for you these days?
That's pretty good. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
pretty nice weather today. Very windy and pretty normal.
Oh, so it's like Chicago, but it's Europe, basically.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I see.
Oh yeah. At least when it gets like this, but they were predicting like a blizzard for like weeks, but they were just making it up. It never happened. Yeah.
Fake news.
Yeah, I think
Fake
it was
blizzard.
fake news. Yeah. But Scotland's good. What about Fort Wayne?
Fort Wayne is a very rainy and cloudy place, but there are certain types of opportunities here. Obviously, I had a staycation for like 5 days.
Oh, nice.
This past weekend, went over to Runk's.
Oh, you did?
in Ann Arbor. Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Oh, when? A couple days ago?
Yeah, it was just that thing that he was trying to set up.
Oh,
with,
did you go to
his
that?
boys from U of M? Yeah,
Oh,
ended
nice.
up going to that. We played Civ.
Oh, like on the
6,
computer.
I think it was. No, there's obviously a computer version of it because people are obsessed with Civ, and then there's a board game version of it, and he literally had to spend like the first hour and a half just explaining the rules because it's like super risk basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And his buddy John Lee, said he was going to be there at
John
1
Lee.
o'clock, and of course he's there at like 5:30. So
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah, so we got like 4 hours into the game and realized it was like midnight, and we're all 30.
That's the worst, man. Yeah, that's like, yeah. That's why I like our Catan games because we know the rules. It's relatively condensed. I mean, you can add the expansions, whatever, but
Yeah.
start at a reasonable time, ends. It ends eventually. But
Yeah.
nice. Well, I'm so
You're
glad
going to be
went out.
done in about 3, maybe 4 hours.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's particularly arduous. But, I mean, Civ is pretty sick, honestly. It just takes forever, and it sucks playing with people who haven't played before
And you have played.
because there's so much to explain.
You haven't played that before.
No, first time playing Civ.
Okay.
You played Civ?
I've never played that one though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot more resource. It's like Risk, but it's like Catan at the same time. There's just like a lot of resources, but the goal is to like take people out. But like,
Yeah.
it's weird in that if someone actually, defeats another player in finality, that player automatically wins the game on the spot
Wait, if you
over all the other players.
if you die.
If you kill another player, you win the game.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
Really? So what's the other win condition? You
Yeah.
have to like reach a certain tech
So
level
there's
or
like other
something?
win conditions where you get like enough gold, or you get enough culture points, or you
Okay.
get there's like another couple that I don't quite remember, but there's like 4 or 5 win cons, and so you don't even have to fight anyone to win the game basically.
That is kind of interesting because like OG Risk and OG Catan, I feel like that's a lot of what they did with the expansion, at least in Catan, is they're just adding win
Yeah.
conditions because it's too one dimensional if you don't have other ways to win, and you can just get cucked early game out of certain options, and then you can't. Win. And then it's just you just sabotage other people, or you're just taking up board space, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and they give the attacker a slight advantage by letting them kind of dictate the pace of the match. Basically, the defender has to play like they have to commit.
Unlike Risk, where the
First in
defender kind of
battle.
has the risk or has the advantage, right?
Yeah, but the defender does have advantages in that often if you are defending, you're defending from a place that has like stat boosts. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Is it dice rolls?
it's just it is yes and no.
Okay.
There are no dice, but there are some random elements.
There's RNG. Is what you're saying.
But it's a lot. But there is RNG. It's just there's just a lot less than in Risk. So
That's good.
that's kind of the short way I
No,
can
but
put it.
I'm glad that you went though, because I didn't see any further discussion in the boys chat, and because it was his birthday, so it's good that you went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we all, hung out with Runk and everything, and of course playing Smash Ultimate till like 2 in the morning or something, and
Nice.
going down, waking up the next day, and Runk had to. Apparently, he had his like I think his uncle's funeral was in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
A couple days later, and he had to drive out to go see his folks.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to take off like 10 in the morning.
Out,
so, and of course, we learned this when it's like 3 in the morning the previous night. Of course,
right?
You know how it goes.
So he didn't know that he had to leave that early, or he thought he was.
Oh no, he knew. It's just that
Okay.
when we all get together, we always get like 4 hours of sleep. For no reason.
Yeah. Although the drive, we'll say depending on where he was going to Pennsylvania is kind of a nice drive because I would drive there sometimes with my family or like my sister. Went to school out there, so nice, straight shot.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So it's a nice little cozy drive, but yeah, I mean, you're going insane with all of this paper editing, essentially, right?
Yeah. If you want to talk about my job, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So,
yep.
We were checking that stuff out with the paper editing, and
yeah, I mean, I sent you a few excerpts, but yeah, I do edit academic manuscripts for money.
Yeah.
So that's
turns out those manuscripts are pretty revealing.
Well, there's a wide range. Yeah, there's a wide range of stuff, but there is definitely some very there's some informative stuff that you won't see anywhere else. But what about it?
I mean, do you do all sorts of different topics, anthropology and like cybernetics and everything, or do they just kind of allow you to? It's a Chinese company, right?
So it is a Chinese company.
So
it is It's based in Switzerland.
Is it like mostly Chinese studies, or
is it? I want to say they have like 11 offices around the world, but I think like maybe 5 or 6 are in China. And then they have a couple. They have one, I think, in Manchester. They have one in Poland. They have one in Romania. They have one in Serbia, Croatia, I think. So there's a couple different. But the bulk of it is in China.
EU.
And China. Well, yeah. So it's almost like half and half because like half of them are in the EU, but they're spread a bunch across all these countries, and the other half are like all in China. Obviously, China is a huge country, but no, when I first started, it was a lot of biology, chemistry. I've even read a couple linguistics papers. You read a handful of humanities papers, and I mean a handful. I've read 1,000, I think 1,100 papers now, and I bet you I can count on these fingers how many humanities papers I've really read. But then right around the time, because we all got together. This was about a year and a half ago when ChatGPT kind of hit the airwaves, and David was the first one to bring it up to me, another one of our friends, at a get together. So, Elliot, you're doing this editing, and why don't you just use ChatGPT? And then that kind of was my initiation into ChatGPT. That was like November, so that was like when it had first been publicized, and then like right then. All of a sudden, it's all machine learning, all AI, all what's the other word you would use? Machine learning, deep learning. I mean, oh my God, go through the list.
Deep learning.
It was like flipping a switch. Honestly, it was really weird because you figure a lot of these research studies, they have to be in preparation for some time, and a lot of it is built on research that they've been doing for some period of time, but they finally find some result. Well, okay, we'll package that into a study. Get a publication, blah, blah, blah. So it was weird that it was that instantaneous. But yeah, so then now I would say, I even read today some machine learning paper. I would say a large proportion of it is AI. Anyway.
Like the paper was AI generated?
No. It was...
Because that's also happening in school now.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, that's funny that you say that because I read a paper the other day... And I have to be careful how much I talk about some of these papers, but it is an open access publisher, which means any paper that has been published already, has finished, it's already on the website. You can find it. So that I think I'm okay to talk about that. And I'm not talking about any super specific details, so I think it's fine. But
it's like what can and can't you talk about,
I think I just can't share specific content, which I have shared excerpts with you privately, but of course that's whatever. But typically they're papers. Yeah. Anyway. what I was going to say is the other day I read a paper where I think in the acknowledgments, because there's always, same format, and at the very bottom it's like conflicts of interest, acknowledgments, it's data availability. And in the acknowledgments, they actually acknowledged ChatGPT, or that wasn't ChatGPT, but it was some other AI for improving the readability of the manuscript. So they were basically openly citing that they had put one of their drafts through an AI and it was really well written. I remember reading it, being like, oh my god, And these papers go through varying levels of editing before they get to me. So it can vary their quality of. So I'm editing them for English. If it wasn't clear, I don't do any content, but Anyway, but yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I obviously suspect that some of the papers are just like AI gobbledygook about fake stuff, but that's the best I can come up with. That's the best I can guess. But
right.
But when I say they're AI, I mean they're about AI. They're about applying machine learning to vision or to object tracking or UAVs, like unmanned aerial vehicles. I've actually read a bunch of papers about that.
Yeah, about like UFOs, basically.
Well, no, you like an unmanned aerial vehicle, like a drone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I guess the nomenclature is blurring between those two things now, right? Like where you have AI, where you have the UFO stuff as what was originally like an unidentified unmanned like vehicle, versus now we actually have just a bunch of drones flying around. Now the terms are blending together.
Well, sort of.
Or am I just thinking about something completely different?
UFO has always been unidentified flying object. I don't know when that term originates, but then UAV. I mean, the way I learned UAV was playing Call of Duty, where there's that you can. It's one of the perks, you can get a UAV, and they say, "Oh, UAV's online." You get the UAV, and it just bombs. It just bombs people.
Yeah.
But yeah, UAV. Yeah, it's like a drone. But nowadays, I don't know what the difference is between a UAV and a drone. I think in the past, a UAV was larger. It was like maybe the size of a small plane that just doesn't have a pilot. But now a drone could be just like a tiny little. But the UFO thing is coming soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's a very interesting topic. It's just like there's so much secrecy around it to begin with that it's like no one actually knows who knows what, and that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah,
it's like no one's ever actually going to arrive at any solid, concrete evidence. Basically, it's all hearsay, and he said, she said. Yeah. He said that like this guy got assassinated because he knew this or knew that, and it's all conjecture.
Right.
There's no
or planted stories. Yeah. As well, right? Stories about that.
So who knows what's planted, what's not?
Yeah.
It's all my intuition versus yours in the end.
To a large extent, yeah.
In a way that no other topic really is quite so acute.
You think UFOs more than
of that nature?
Really? Well, I suppose probably
there's just so many like unknown unknowns and partially unknown.
Yeah.
Unknowns. You know what I mean? There's no. It's almost impossible to find any real solid ground.
Well, I mean, it's not even clear what it's about when you talk about UFOs, because as I said, UFO refers to the unidentified flying objects, but people associate it with terrestrials. Extraterrestrials. That's obviously the implication, but so. And we don't really know. I mean, we don't even know what space is. I mean, if you want to get into that, I don't think we know what space is. I've read a bunch. Speaking of which, I've read a bunch of papers about AI landing systems for the lunar lander. How can we land better? Blah blah blah. I've totally read papers about that.
And use computers and AI to basically land the crafts.
Yeah, Which I mean, I'm sure that sort of. I mean, I have also read papers doing the same thing for like aircraft on Earth. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, it still doesn't lead me to believe that we know exactly what space is, or that it's what we think it is when we watch, based on Star Wars or Star Trek or even more kind of semi-realistic or what we think of as realistic depictions in sci-fi, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a big sci-fi guy. I always was, but...
Right. Sci-fi is pretty dope. But about the papers, though, I mean, like,
Yeah.
obviously it'd be interesting to dig a lot deeper into kind of the trends of the day here, as far as what you've been seeing lately. But, like, again, I just don't know how much you can talk about
I can talk in general terms.
contractually.
As long as, yeah,
Okay.
I can, I think I'm pretty sure
How
I
like
can
how
talk.
specific can and can't you get?
I'm not gonna. I can't share any literal. I mean, if I look, it's funny. If I looked at my dashboard right now, I can see that there are only 21 papers that are under production right now, which means the other 1,108 are public domain, which means I should be able to talk about all those. I mean, I
Okay.
can speak in general terms, I guess, about any. What are you thinking about?
So, so like, how long does it take for a paper to go into public domain? Because in music, like it's not public domain till 100 years after it's published.
Well, yeah, sorry,
So,
I don't
see
mean
what I'm saying?
I don't mean public domain in terms of like copyright. I mean, yeah, maybe that's the wrong way to put it. I mean, it's public. It's been published. It's on their website. It's an open access publisher. A lot of people don't know a lot about academic. You know more about the academic world probably than most. Where
Yeah.
typically if you want to access research, like I get it all the time. I'm lucky. Like I'm not at university anymore, but my wife works for the university as a receptionist. I can use her login with the University of Edinburgh for all kinds of publishers where I can get access to
Right.
research. If you don't have a login or an institutional affiliation, typically, it's $40 just to read this paper. I mean, literally, like we're talking large
That's
sums,
crazy.
huge, right? Like $40.
Yeah.
Oh, read this. It might be 15 pages long. $40. Boom, right? But an open access publisher, the idea is that either the researchers themselves, or more often their funding body, or whoever puts up an article processing fee to so that nobody has to pay to read the paper. These
I see.
article processing fees can be a lot more than you might think. We're talking in the thousands of dollars, like $2,000-$3,000.
That's crazy.
Depends on what it is. I don't know exactly how they like. Frankly, hang on, let me close this.
Yeah.
Frankly, I know very little about their publication process, and I think they keep it that way. I'm a freelancer, so I'm not even really like directly employed by the company probably as far as they're concerned. But anyway, so it's an open access publisher, and open access is kind of has like a bad name in academics because it's obviously it can be seen as kind of just capitalist, right? Kind of we'll publish whatever as long as you pay us. Of course, the flip side is that this hallowed peer review crap is really not what you think it is either. It doesn't mean that all the science that's ever published in these ancient journals is of the highest caliber.
It's all been peer reviewed, and
it has
all been through tens of thousands of test subjects, all controlled in the same way.
It has been peer reviewed, but what I'm saying is peer review is to some extent could be seen as just approval from the club, which I think is what happens in a lot of fields. I mean, I think a lot of academics would tell you this. I don't think I'm saying anything super controversial.
Yeah, this isn't novel to music or to linguistics or every academic group's going to have its kind of club, whether regionally or inside one institution, or in like some kind of like multi kind of group, like not academia, but there's like a whole group of like a Facebook group. One of the earliest kind of examples of this, where there's a group of like several thousand dentists, and now if you're getting like a dentist degree, it's just either highly suggested and or like mandatory to join this. I don't know if it's a Facebook group but it's like a society of like dentists that all kind of get together and like they discuss dentist things, and it's like a kind of like an open peer like community resource, like
professional
a school type
society.
of SKOOL, like the company, like a school type of resource. That they all have to use to kind of further their career and also just be in a community of other dentists. And so there's something kind of like that in a lot of like national, international societies, like for double reads. There's an International Double Read Society.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like a very kind of like old school type of forum thing. And also like there are quarterly releases of like publishing and articles and things like that. And like recent exposés on CDs that have been released from double read players, and there's a double read conference that happens every year. It's been in Japan a couple of years back. I think it was in Colorado last year. I think the year before that, like it got canceled a couple of years because of COVID. And it's like there's multiple layers that stack on top of each other of how academics will structure the pecking order of who has more say and pull in certain fields, and some of that is for good reason, because you need people who have more experience and have a deeper portfolio and more qualification to be able to have a louder voice, if for no other reason than to disseminate experience to a wider audience. But obviously, how academia goes. There tends to be a lot of ego inserted into the process too, because we're humans, and also because the structure kind of incentivizes this behavior too.
Yeah. And there's a lot of money to be made off of those hierarchies as well.
Yeah, and it's it seems like, hey, there's no money in the academy, but you get deep enough and you get access to government funding, essentially. I forget what the numbers exactly were, but I think it was like either there are many Ivy League institutions, public universities that receive what would that be? 10 digits of money a year at least.
You mean from
like
federal
50
funding
billion or like 40 billion for like per university. And which if you think about how many of those there are, I mean, obviously they're not all getting 50 billion, but there's so much money just being funneled into those universities, and it completely and totally eclipses the private sector. So by that I mean like businesses, even like businesses like McDonald's, let alone businesses like mom and pop bike shop down the street.
Yeah, although I will say that some of these academics, especially in the sciences, I mean they've been in and out of the public sector. So they've gotten patents, they've worked for industry, they've and some of the researchers that are co-authors on some of these papers, they don't have an institutional affiliation, at least not anymore, or not currently. They work for some business or some whatever consulting firm, or I don't know. Mostly academics, but I don't know. It's it's hard to know how much money. I still don't think that a lot of these academics really make a lot of money, but there is definitely a lot of money in the system at large. And the administrators of the system definitely make a lot of money.
It's very Pareto distributed, or Matthew principle distributed, where a lot of the adjunct professors are and local kind of people are getting like 8 hours, maybe 10, 12, 15 hours if they're lucky of teaching a week on contract, and getting paid like, I don't know, like maybe $30 an hour to do it. But they got to patch, it's like patching together a bunch of jobs waiting tables, basically, oftentimes, where it's really hard to get 40 hours somewhere, let alone 30. And so, like when I was waiting tables, there'd be lots of weeks where I had 15 or 20 hours, on the schedule. So,
but you could make more money depending on the activity in the restaurant.
Usually patch, you usually patch together as an adjunct like 3, 4, even 5 different jobs. Then you have to manage all these different curricula, essentially, to put together what is essentially a like 50, 60K a year.
Well, if that
pay structure,
if that, yeah, if even close to that.
And that's if you actually get all those jobs and keep them.
Yeah, I've heard
they can let you go at any time for any reason.
Much worse horror stories, but basically,
yeah.
And I don't know. I suspect it seems like a lot of the authors on these papers, many of them are still students, they're graduate students, they're PhD students, whatever.
Anyway. Trying to build some type of portfolio together to give them the pull to start demanding more stable income, essentially.
Yeah.
because a lot of it's research based.
Yeah, or more
when
prestige
you're not
in general.
when you're not in a tactile performance based degree program. Like with music, there's there's research and papers people do for music, but that's more so if you're like a theorist or a historicist.
I see.
Whereas if you're a performer, a lot of your work is teaching based. A lot of your work is based on
gig based, right?
output to other, like I said, like organizations in the classical kind of industry, as far as putting out like EPs and things like that, and doing certain collaborations and but generally as a performer, you're not putting together an entire living just off of performing on your instrument. You have to be playing at a very high level and have a lot of connections to in the classical industry, especially to do that and only perform. Almost everybody is a teacher in some capacity. So the academic institution is just kind of built into the classical economy in a way that's, without doing the sort of thing that I'm interested in doing, with integrating gear and content and things like this. Like you're just in that industry. You're just in that part of society if you're gonna make it as a classical musician.
You're saying because sort of the university has a monopoly on almost the body of students, right? They're the area where
consumers.
It's taught, basically, and so you want access to that market, you go through the university.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you can do private lessons yourself, right? I mean, there's martial music, there's stuff like that, but
or if I was to decide I wanted to make a living just teaching lessons, I would move to Texas, maybe Houston or maybe Dallas. Would be ideal, and I would try to pick up 50 to 60 students in the first year or two, and there's like a very structured method and kind of culture through which the Texas, I think it's like TMEA, like how there's MSBOA for Michigan, Michigan School Band and Orchestra in the Arts or whatever it's called, like the institution that all the K through 12 is going through essentially. Like TMEA is very, very highly. There's like a pre-established kind of path in culture. Like people often play on intermediate instruments. Or on my phone. People often play on intermediate instruments right from the get-go.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
But we're in the middle of What are you doing? You're baking? You're still painting? Yeah. Okay, well, get out of here and get at it. Okay? She's having an arts and crafts day. Yeah. So.
I see.
Okay, I'm good though. We can swap if you want. Okay, well I'm good. So. Okay, you look good. Okay. Nice. She's for the post show. Yeah.
I see.
The show after the show.
She's getting ready for the post op.
Okay. Good luck. Anyway, sorry, MSBOA, you said you get 50, 60 students, and that's because you need a lot of them.
And yeah. So I could probably charge like $60 a lesson if I really wanted to, especially
that's
like
an
in
hour
Texas
lesson
at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty good.
So
it's highly specialized, but you have to have the demand.
With my level of education, I'm kind of in a weird position because I have a very strange list of credentials. The master's degree is pretty standard, but I mean, so that would be kind of structured. But on top of that, I'd have this strange position where I'm very highly trained in gear and business as well.
Okay.
So,
but then I find it interesting because even like I remember taking private lessons as a kid, and it was always through either the school or it was through martial music.
Yep.
And so even outside of the university,
that's where the leads are.
That's their leads,
so
right?
Speak. So that's where the leads live.
I don't actually know. I kind of, now you mentioned, I do wonder, were those teachers, were they paying some of their money to the? And I don't even know what my mom paid for the lessons. I don't remember.
Because
Mr. Markley, he was
there was some chunk of it going to the program, but
there was what?
In my experience, I took private lessons.
Or no,
like
over
15 years.
I take
you know what
back.
I mean? Like, right. But like what I'm saying is,
or do they like rent the room?
when I would just like give like Anne Marie pay for her lessons, like it would just be I was like in 6th grade, so my mom's like, here's a check, hand it to Anne Marie when you go to the lesson,
Yeah.
and so I would just hand Anne Marie a check. And
Right. My question is like if you teach lessons at Marshall Music, do you pay that? You must be renting the room in some way or another.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're teaching at like a Marshall Music,
And I don't
like
know
when I
what
took
Anne
lessons
Marie's or
from a
Mr.
guy named
Markley's
Jeff
subject.
Stockton, when I did my senior project for guitar, like he had a room
Oh,
at
did you do
Marshall
that?
Music.
Was that
teaching
senior 7 you
from.
did that?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Oh, we were in
So
the same class though.
I would assume that for the infrastructure and the space to have that room and then have access to all the students coming in and have them referred to Jeff, it's like someone to take classes, because I didn't know who Jeff was.
Yeah.
I just took lessons from Jeff because I was like, oh, I'm trying to do a little guitar for this, and I'm wondering who would be a good fit. And they're like, oh, you should go with Jeff, and I went with Jeff, and
Okay.
Jeff didn't know me before I hopped in first lesson,
Sure.
so for all that lead access and home and office renting and leasing, I'm sure he's given some part of the cut to Marshall for that access.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they wouldn't just give him the space for free just to draw
Yeah,
more students.
and I mean, you are obviously you're
and
mostly
more
working with
customers.
kids, which means you're actually working with their parents. So if you want
Yeah,
to,
the parents are the consumers.
yeah. So if you want to like,
Until you get to a professional level,
right.
or like a advanced high. Once you get to a collegiate level, there starts to be some blur depending on the how the kid was raised and the economy
Right.
of the parents involved. You know what I mean?
But there's
So
fewer and fewer of those too, though. I mean, the masses are really, if you want to go to get business about it, you want to target the most people. You're going for the 12-year-olds,
yeah,
right? Because there's the most.
if you're
of them.
trying to teach,
There's the most of
if you're
them.
trying to teach,
Yeah, I'm just saying because you're using the
yeah,
example of Texas.
yeah.
And
So this
50,
is
60
this is a
students.
reason why teachers can tend to burn out quickly, is because if you're building any business, you just want to get as many leads as you possibly can to make sure you can pay the bills. And then once you are able to pay the bills, you can start getting a little more picky about who you're teaching, right? And try to get like the ultimate goal, would be to get a list of people you're excited to teach, who show up regularly, who enjoy your teaching. But
I was a shit ass
I
student
never studied.
for some of those.
I know.
I did a guitar lessons in Minnesota too, and I remember just not being super into it. But when I was like, "Oh, you should do guitar," I was doing it with my dad or something, but he was too busy.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, but
Right. Right. I mean, a lot of people take lessons. I mean, just doing it is like, a pretty formative experience, because it just forces you to think about
Yeah.
what does it mean to improve at something,
yeah,
right?
yeah, no, for sure. And I
that's-
enjoyed my trumpet, but
That's the valuable part,
Yeah.
like being forced to think about what it means to improve at something and approach that over some kind of long-term horizon, and
Yeah.
how that grows you as a person and a critical thinker and an analyst, and also just being in a community of people. And
yeah, I mean, taking
I
lessons.
say on the phone all the time at work, like
Yeah.
everybody, to all the kind of the band orchestra leads, like moms and stuff buying for their kids. It's like everybody who I talked to from high school was in band for at least 3 to 4 years, if not 7.
Everybody you talk to from where? You mean at work?
Everyone who I still talk to from high school was in band.
Oh yes, for sure.
know?
Yes, yeah. You, our other buddies. Frankly, I can't
Yeah.
think of anybody else now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like we talked like 3 people.
It's pretty much 3 people
We're,
now.
we're
yeah.
in our early 30s, so
Yeah, it could be more. I'm not sure why it's dwindled
Yeah.
like this, but I think it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah. But
Anyway, but I don't remember what we
Yeah.
were originally talking about, but
that's welcome to the podcast, baby.
Yeah,
that's
that's
how
okay.
it goes. But yeah, I mean, whole point is just to
oh,
talk about something that's engaging and interesting and
is
see where
okay.
it goes. But yeah, I mean, I could go on for a long time about where I see things going with the music industry, as far as with band and orchestra and classical music in particular, because I mean, there's only a select small number of paths you can really realistically take if you're trying to stay within the infrastructure as it exists today, and that is some combination of the following is to be a performer whether you're playing orchestral stuff or, chamber music stuff, or often you'll need to, be in cozy with a number of churches in the area for routine gigs.
My cousin still does that on Christmas because it's one of the best. So just a solid couple $100, whatever it is. He's playing drums for Christmas.
They're happy you're there.
Right.
Yeah. Easy, low stress.
Yep.
Pay well. They respect you.
And he doesn't even work in music at all. But he's just got that gig, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, generally, people, we love the churches because, they treat us the way we wish the other people would treat us.
Which is kind of funny too, because probably a lot of musicians, they don't think anything about church necessarily personally, but it's a solid relationship.
A lot of them are not necessarily Christian, or they're not necessarily Christian. They just are, really good at playing classical music, basically.
Now,
some of them are Christian.
Let me ask you a dumb question. This is, talking about you're saying the number of paths, reasonable paths that someone could take in this way. Certainly things they don't really tell you when you're, 13 years old, picking up the bassoon here in Mr. Greer's band, right? Our old band director. But, on some level, we got all these, and I'm sure on your other episodes you'll get into all these things going on in society, and dark things and shady things and money and power and all that. And, things like music and theater and art, they almost, now as an adult, you look back, they're kind of these quaint things that we get kids to do. And certainly we all value like a really, really skilled performer on any instrument, because it's still something about the human condition that we all really appreciate for some reason. I mean, even the most, evil dictator wants a little, 5-man mariachi band.
Jester.
Or whatever, right? Yeah.
Celebrating his coronation.
I mean, who knows what you're going to really pay those people, right? But I guess my question was,
ideally nothing.
Yeah, ideally, I suppose ideally nothing.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Ideally nothing. But I guess what I was going to ask is increasingly, I mean, I know it's just sort of a cliche to say kids these days, but like, it really is different. Kids walking around with this in their pocket. I even think back to you and me where we had Game Boys, whatever. But there was a sociality to all of us, and we weren't. We still interacted as little human beings, and I mean, art feels very social. It feels very human. But I'm almost wondering. I mean, this has got to be killing kids' brains in a deep way. Yeah. And I wonder what
I hear people talking about brain rot.
Yeah, brain rot, which is sort of a
like Zoomers who use the phones. Talking about brain rot from just consuming like 3 or 4 hours of short form content a day, basically.
Yeah, and imagine starting that at age 10.
Short term memory going down the drain, or long term memory, I should say, going down the drain.
Even short term memory getting smaller and smaller too, right? But I guess my question to you is what happens when it almost feels like. I don't envy teachers. Greer wanted to kill himself many times, even just teaching us, right? Trying to get kids, okay, pay attention, play your homework.
There are a lot of rough days.
Practice this, right?
For Mr. Greer.
I mean, is that a shrinking? Is it shrinking? I mean, fewer and fewer.
Music?
The ability to get kids to go into things like that, or even to just as a kid, right? I didn't go into music, but I still spent many years playing my horn and.
I think they're all perfectly capable of still doing it. It's just that there are more and more who are entering kind of, brain rot territory of just consuming tons and tons of short form. Because, I see, I work with a number of parents who have kids who are really deep into, probably like Gen Alpha people at this point.
Yeah, pretty
much. Who are
older Gen
very
Alpha.
Deep into... prodigious territory for playing instruments, or just who are highly involved in the type of path that I went on when I was that age, which is playing in multiple extracurricular audition-based festivals or ensembles, or just places where you meet other highly trained and advanced and involved pre-college musicians and, playing with people who take it as seriously as you do, and things haven't really changed that much.
Okay.
If anything, they're just kind of more, excited and passionate about it.
I guess that's a small group anyway.
It just, yeah, it's going to be a small group of people.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe I'm thinking.
So I guess we're thinking more so about the generic, average
like
person
myself,
who just goes to school and gets, B's or C's, maybe D's in high school, coasts through and, just kind of has a couple of friends they hang out with in high school, and then they graduate. Maybe they go to community college and, get a normal job somewhere. You know what I mean? Or, maybe they just wait tables or something.
I guess I was even talking about...
That's kind of the average person you're probably...
Well, I was even talking about people like me. I wasn't getting B's or C's, and I wasn't playing in some of these select ensembles. I was, upper echelons of just kind of the generic high school band. But it feels like a lot of kids wouldn't even have the mental capacity or the interest or the value placed on those things today, to just reach that level, because I wasn't going to be a concert trumpet.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that there's just less interest in general. I'm not in those, I'm not around those kids. I don't actually know.
Well, what I'm saying is
I think that things aren't actually that much different.
Okay.
I think, and I think that there's kind of a split happening where some of them are, a lot more plugged in, a lot more serious, and others of them are just, brain rot, basically. It's just kind of schisming. It's not as if it's like everyone's just being pulled down.
Good point.
I think that some people are hyper aware of the problem.
Some parents
and some people
are hyper aware of the problem.
are just drowning in the problem.
Yeah.
And then some parents are the problem. Yeah. Like we have iPad kids now.
Yeah.
Now it's like millennials turning Gen Alpha kids into iPad kids.
Yeah.
There's like this whole gentle parenting thing going on.
Yeah.
So. And also, like, I'm just too tired and, whatever. And so I just hand the, people who just hand their 2 or 3 year old kid like a screen so that they can just like walk around the store, basically. You know?
Oh, I've seen them. And
then like you see the kids who are like using like an iPad and a phone and like scrolling through 7-second content on both devices simultaneously.
That's pretty messed up. Is there shorts on YouTube Kids?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because there's like the whole YouTube Kids thing. I think, my nephews definitely use YouTube Kids, but.
Yeah, I mean, like, Crystal's told me that YouTube is basically for boomers these days.
What? I watch YouTube.
And that, and it's like if you look at the demographics.
Oh, does she watch TikTok?
A lot more. A lot of TikTok, a lot of Instagram. Yeah, that's all more common among people who are like upper 20s, mid 20s, or lower at this point. But I mean, you look at the demographics. There are a lot of like young millennial men in particular who just drink in YouTube through the fire hose.
We're kind of
that's still pretty common.
Right?
Yeah, we're in that demographic.
We're younger.
Is what I'm saying.
I watch plenty of YouTube. I definitely watch a lot of YouTube, but a lot of it is like speed runs or that type of content, right? I don't watch it. I watch my fair bit of shorts, but I never touch TikTok.
The algorithm is very clumsy in that you have to consume quite a bit of it for it to catch up with what actually will pull you in. Like, I haven't used TikTok enough to feel like when I open TikTok, I'm just like, oh shit, I have to watch the next 10 videos.
Because it knows.
Whereas a lot of people, because it takes a while. TikTok's algorithm is a lot more experimental than YouTube's or even in Instagram's.
Okay, interesting.
Where it's a lot more willing to show you like this random tangential thing that's kind of related to what you were looking at, and has a lot less views. It's a lot more friendly to creators with a lot less viewership. Instagram is basically just, you get cock-blocked. Like, if you have 50 views, if someone's not looking for something very specific, which is what you're posting content about, you're just never going to get seen.
The
Instagram is basically very unfriendly in that way. Whereas YouTube, you can get seen on YouTube. It's just going to take a lot of dedicated work over time and focusing where your attention goes and who you're trying to reach, because there's so much on YouTube that if you're just making content without any intent or focus in any way to create a community of some sort around some type of idea, or I hate to use the word niche because it's just so grossly overused and means nothing now, but But the idea of the niche is that you can actually get seen in the first place and then build something from there. Whereas on TikTok, the algorithm is a lot more friendly to being seen by randos, essentially.
Okay.
But over time, people just, because of the immediacy of the feedback on TikTok, it pulls most people in just off of that. And then they feed it 50, 100, 200 hours worth of attention. And then by then, the algorithm is just like very, very... It can flesh out every last little bit of the tree branch all the way to the details on the leaves of what's going to pull you in, essentially.
Right.
So that's kind of how that's set up. But it requires more feedback to really kind of take off.
Okay.
And I just haven't used it enough to feed it the information that it needs.
Okay.
So that's on me.
Hold on. No. I don't think
figuring it out a little more.
I don't think you should necessarily use it. I mean, I suppose if you're saying for experimentation,
it's not a primary focus for me long term. Really, it's like I say TikTok as a way to. I mean, if you're looking at short form content as a way to basically generate leads for your longer form content. If not an actual business.
Well, yeah, you're talking about content creation. I thought you were talking about content consumption.
Yeah. I mean, content creation can be seen in a sense because content creation literally is modern day marketing.
Okay.
Like, give it like 10 years, like no one's going to be watching anything on TV.
That's for sure.
You know what I mean?
That's 100% for sure. Yes, that's 100% for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like even Netflix subscriptions are going down now.
Oh, interesting. I'm not surprised by that. It almost feels like they're tanking it on purpose.
People are...
Because like one of the things I noticed is that like last time I was home for I don't know, however it was quite a few months. So I watched like the whole NFL season with my grandma, and she couldn't find any. I mean, it used to be on TV, right? She's 90 years old, so she's been watching sports.
Why is nothing good on TV anymore?
Well, the thing with the NFL, you actually couldn't get most of the games on TV. Except I'm trying to think. Maybe it was only like might have been like Monday or Sunday, but then Thursday, because remember at first it was always just Sunday. This is like way back, but then it turned into Monday, Sunday, and Thursday. And Thursday Night Football was bought by Prime, so by Amazon. So if you wanted to watch Thursday Night Football, you had to have Amazon Prime. And then like Monday or Sunday was bought by like Hulu or something like that. So it was like all these different. And Grandma's like, well, I just want to watch football. Like, what the heck? So I think I got a free trial of Amazon Prime or something like that, or I used somebody else's Prime to watch Thursday with her. But it was weird because I'm like, well, the NFL doesn't want to lose viewership, right? You would think, but you wonder if it's not more of just like you're saying, like the NFL is so big, and if the powers that be or whatever interests, I don't even know how to describe them, are trying to transition to a new form of media. It's like in the short term, if they lose viewership, who cares, right? In the long term, they want people... And one way to watch the NFL also, I should say, was YouTube TV. So that was another way you could just... I think I got a free trial of that for her as well, right? Which I'm not paying for YouTube TV, but although I do wonder if in the distant future, 10, 15 years from now, if that's not my only choice, if I want to, right, have TV for my kids or whatever, right?
Right.
Like in the same way that you used to buy cable, right? But... I don't remember where I was going with that, but NFL was I think one way they were dragging a large portion of the user base.
Right.
Kind of just testing the waters.
Basically, a lot of people under the age of 35 or even 40 are saying, the only reason I have a TV subscription, which is just like a Hulu TV or a YouTube TV subscription these days. Like, none of us have cable. None of us.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's been that way for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But the only reason they have like a traditional TV subscription is to watch sports. That's it.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Because you can't really watch that stuff, on like Twitch or a live stream.
Yeah, it's not as much fun to watch highlights. You want to watch it live. I think that's the interesting thing.
Yeah, because it has a really high production value too. Yeah. And that's part of the appeal as well.
Yeah.
Is you're watching, and each of the cameras that you're watching it through costs like at least $5,000 to $10,000.
Well, I suppose that's
because the production values. Yeah. So, and that's just the way things are in that medium, and that's I guess part of the appeal. But until they really cracked the sports code for, I think that, I mean, it's obvious that the way YouTube and Hulu want to approach it is they just want to have like a TV channel basically, but instead it's YouTube TV or Hulu TV. Like they don't plan to remove the TV label from it. And I guess in a way it also draws in the boomer crew and the Gen X crew, because my folks, it took me forever to get them to want to try Roku.
Oh, you got
my mom was on board with it long before my dad was.
Yeah.
But then once I convinced my dad to finally cross the border, like as soon as he just used it for like an hour, he was like, "Oh, why do I have cable?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a good question. I've been saying that for like 5 years."
Because Roku is just a bunch
cable?
of different apps, right? Like,
yeah, you can literally buy. I'm like, the thing that converted was that that gave him the impetus to give it a shot in the first place is that you can buy a cheaper cable subscription that doesn't have all the junk on it on Roku or on Hulu.
That you're never going to watch, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, my mom's found like 5 to 10 different shows she does watch on that and DVR and things. And
Sure.
So, not literal DVR, but for all the old millennials out there,
that know what
you know what I'm
DVR
talking
is.
about. Yeah. So, back in the day, we had to record what we wanted to see and then play it back. It wasn't just available at all times.
I remember recording things on VHS, dude.
Pop in the tape, It's like, don't you dare write over my tape. I just never see it. The old classic, someone grabs the wrong videotape.
Oh, and overwrites.
Or maybe they just don't know what they're going to see on the videotape,
You never know what's on that tape.
Also that problem.